Hunga Tonga water vapor eruption versus Tambora sulfur dioxide eruption. What does that have to do with 2026? New information out. Let's take a look at it. And as we review the eruption, wow, up to 90,000 feet, the water vapor adding 14% more moisture to our atmosphere in a single event. Well, first of all, it has an effect on hurricane formations. It's showing that since there is a cap at the top of our atmosphere now, that large cyclones are not really the norm across the Pacific. It's more incredibly small vortex, lightning fast. And this is the type of typhoons slash cyclones. And also, as this spread across the Atlantic, the dampening of formation of hurricanes. They call it the shrink wrap effect on tropical cyclones. And what I'm talking about is literally there's a cap of water vapor in the atmosphere. So as these clouds would rise, they call it vertical squeezing, where it hit a literal ceiling in the sky. It had a constrained outflow, which changed wind patterns and caused it to tighten. And this intense eye wall formation is the result. And we have seen this, that the seemingly out of nowhere hurricanes, cyclones, typhoons just are there, and they suddenly go to category 5 and 6 and whoosh, and then they hit land. This is a direct relationship from that shown on what some of the effects are in terms of how far in the atmosphere, how high these formations can go versus what they were able to, now constrained. So with that being said, just on cyclone formation, what else is changing with the wind flows that might affect our food production on the planet is another thing to look at. But first, the review. 1816 year without a summer, peak cooling. Mount Tambora, Indonesia fires off, triggered volcanic winter, solar radiation reflected, aerosol particles spread across the planet. And if you look over at our favorite North American continent, year without a summer, 1816, frost, snow, crop failures, famine. And then we had Hunga Tonga, 2022, water vapor eruption, just a canopy around the earth of water vapor that stretched up as high as 87 to 90,000 feet. The bulk of it was around 50 kilometers above, and that started to rain out. Now you'll notice in this graphic here, the multiple effects that are being shown of making our atmosphere warm up, westerly bursts changing into mega El Niños, and also the influence on weather patterns in cold. Now, what I want you to do is look where it says traps greenhouse. You get that effect there, this maritime continent drying effect. Now, since that was so pronounced for several years, there's now a snapback occurring when this is dissipating. And the result is tropical formations on the equator that dumped years worth of rain on Indonesia and Aceh, as well as Malaysia and Thailand, reaching, I don't know, once in a 2,000-year floods, all in the same area that's now dissipating in that same, let's say, formation or blockage of that pattern. And that's the whole thing. We are in the snapback mode now. Things are starting to clear. There's still an enormous amount of water vapor that's coming down. This is the reason there's been so many floods over the last couple of years. But specific patterns that were locked into place for years on end are now starting to dissipate. And as with anything, with a flow of something, it is starting to amplify. And this is the result. These things are snapping back, but they're not completely cleared out yet. So there's still bunching of atmospheric patterns. But there is, let's say, a new establishment going on of maybe not previous norms exactly, but we're moving into something new and different as well, as this goes from blocked to more of a loose pattern. In the heavens above us, the volcanic spark, Hunga Tonga, the genesis of the 2023 mega El Nino. So again, we're talking about a massive monster blocking pattern here in the atmosphere. You can't have that much water vapor pop out and then be like, oh, the winds are just going to stay the way they were. No, they're blocked. they had to find different ways to go. They caused significant westerly bursts. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alfa Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. Downwelling, this is the reason we have this insane Nino, because that water just couldn't go anywhere in it. There's no way to alleviate and have it easterly blow backward. And to show you the blocking pattern, there it is. That part of the atmosphere is completely rocketed and blocked off, going up, you know, I'll be generous and say 80,000 feet. Wind need to bend around that. That's what the winds need to do, is bend around it. And what that did in turn was created this mega Nina, and you can see that giant spike there from 2023 ramping up about a year after the eruption. And you see the subsequent maximum heating was in the first quarter of 2024. And since that, water vapor has now started to drift out and not have as much of a lasting effect where air can flow back into previously blocked areas. We're starting to drop off in these temperatures. And with anything deflected, how Madden Julian oscillation phases trigger Arctic warming, follow the Rossby wave. Well, if that's deflected or amplified, the polar jet stream would be punched through, and we would start to see not only more moisture and more rainfall, more snow records smashed as we have through the whole Arctic Circle, but warm. And then when that spills out, we're going to get into the cold. And the West Coast also is starting to have these strange anomalies with like constant, never-ending arc storms, and then this fog filling in the valleys that has lasted for weeks. Apparently, it's some of the longest it's been recorded since 1800s on how long this particular trapped convective fog had been in that valley. Again, all kind of strange records breaking. Southern California got really wet, along with the Burning Man. That whole desert area really got incredibly drenched and wet. That was a specific movement of moisture into a new area, forced no less by that blocking pattern in our atmosphere from the Hunga Tonga eruption. So I'll bring you over to Dr. Roy Spencer's site here. This is version 6.1, global area average linear temperature trends. 2024, remember when I showed you that spike and said subsequently after quarter one, 2024, maximum achievement of temperatures from the eruption, and now it's starting to, well, drop off. But here's your max temps in red, above the normal baseline caused by that water vapor eruption. The southern hemisphere increased 0.81, almost a degree. The tropics, though, this is the big thing, the sandwich from 20 north to 20 south in both hemispheres, increase in temperature of full degree Celsius, 0.26, 1.25 degrees. Global almost up a full degree on that single event, on a degree up. As we move through this MJO, tropical heat engine, stopping because the super, and again, they called it a super MJO, which was responsible for that punch through all the way to the Arctic and the heating, the incredible snowfalls and all these things we've seen so far. This is going to, well, bend back into place. It's actually going to constrain and pull back a little bit as this atmospheric energy flow in our atmosphere tries to restabilize. So this in itself, this Rossby wave is going to, well, behave strangely as we go through 26 and 27, all the way to 2030, where it rejoins the hydrological cycle. And oh my, we are going to get, well, snowier and rainier massively. And here it comes. 2022 injection above the stratosphere into the mesosphere, no less. I'm telling you, this thing, that is where the ice crystal clouds landed on the ozone, which is an O3 molecule. And the ice crystal surface allowed for the destruction of ozone. Anyway, ozone depletion didn't make that much news coverage on the decline in ozone during these years as well. Go back to 2022 to 25 and take a look at the ozone numbers on that. You'll see a decline. But the global transport Brewer-Dobson circulation, this is where we get in. Now we're to higher level and lower level atmospheric flows. You're going to get this cap, and we saw the cap. It affected hurricanes. It also affected where different air systems and flows around our world would go and have gone. Now, as this thing sinks lower into the atmosphere, they call it a stratospheric water layer. You can see the same contours of it, but where this is where the air is going to flow, the polar sinking air. This is for southern polar air and northern polar air both. It's all happening on both sides of the planet. Southern hemisphere even more, because that's where the eruption was. And they even point out Greenland and Antarctica as target spots. And then here we go. 2025, the blue line, Greenland ice sheet melt or gain extent for the entire season. Now looking at this, the black line is the 30-year average. So on a 30-year average, have we gained more ice this year or lost more ice this year? And that red is from autumn of 2024. And now we're starting to get into the ramifications where that cap is now starting to sink lower and the air is starting to move out, and we are going to begin to see more snow and strange wind events. Well, we've already seen that. Partially from the blocking highs that are setting in place in the new magnetic field of our polar wander event here. Right over Kamchatka Peninsula, it seems that high pressure keeps knocking all the cold air out of its normal flow for this winter. Coupled with this, and this is why we're seeing these staggering amounts of rain events and snow events occurring across the planet in the northern hemisphere for our winter right now. This is the beginning of, well, the fallout of the atmosphere of all that moisture and the reigniting of wind speeds that were normally blocked off or channeled into different parts of our planet are going to begin returning back to their normal flows. So just that in itself, as it reestablishes a quote unquote normal flow. But over the long term, these 200 years of stability of what we consider that's the way it's normal is not really, it is for now. But this is changing. So get ready for 2026. Snowfall if you love rolling in the snow and making snow angels and that sort of thing. It could definitely be a year for you in 26, 27, 28, the years, plural, of snow. And please remember, buymeacoffee.com/civilization and Alfa Vedic Holistic Dental Care. Those links are in the description box below. Every purchase you make helps keep this channel on air. I will see you next year or next time. Bye for now.